Hey everybody, it's Regan with Never Stop Healing, and I'd like to introduce our guest for today's show. I think you're going to really enjoy this. Her name's Natalie Jill. She's a fat loss expert. She's also a creative sales strategic coach who helps women redefine, reignite, and rebrand what aging has to mean. She's in her 50s, as you'll see. She's very fit, but what she does is she's having conversations around midlife. And I think you're going to love this because she helps entrepreneurs skyrocket their sales. She also has an incredible social media following of 3 million people. She's got 2 best-selling books. She's got a top-ranked podcast, recognition from Forbes, and several others. And so as you dive in, you'll find more information about her at nataliejill.com or the brandstoryexpansion.com. But she is somebody who has really hosted and built Listen Up, Midlife Conversation with Natalie Jill, and I'll be on her podcast very soon. So check it out. I hope you enjoy today's show. Really appreciate you being part of our community, and just want to express my gratitude to you. If it weren't for you, this show wouldn't exist. So thank you for being a part of us. And without further ado, let's get to the show. All right, everybody. And I'm so excited to introduce you to Natalie Jill. Natalie, welcome to Never Stop Healing.
Can't wait to chat with you.
This will be fun. So you've got just a very unique background. I mean, first of all, do you mind if I share your age?
Nope, I share it everywhere.
Natalie is 51, and if you want to Google her, you'll be like 51 with a 51-year-old with a six-pack, and she's a mom, and she runs very successful businesses. She's written multiple books, as you guys know. But how do you do it? How did you reframe your thinking into most 51-year-olds are throwing in the towel? You're just seems like you're just starting.
Yeah, it's such a mindset thing. And I know we toss around the idea of mindset like all over the place. It's something that people talk about, mindset, but I truly live it. My motto is always possibility over problem. So, vision over circumstance, solution over excuse. I mean, that's how I've always lived. And I don't make it negotiable that I'm going to work the other way around, because just like anyone listening, we all have circumstances, things happen, problems pop up. But how we dive into them, what we focus on, determines our fate always.
Man, because circumstances, I think people, we can blame the circumstance, and we can say, well, hey, I'm justified in my behavior. Like I'm in my 50s now or whatever. I don't need to. I've had, this injury, and I know you've had your own injuries, but what are the big circumstances that you've seen that keep people from finding their best health at any age?
It's interesting because you can take 2 people with the same exact circumstance, and the outcomes or what they present from those circumstances can be completely different. So, and I really do believe it's always a choice. So let me just give you a few examples. And I don't want to make this about me. But I'm going to give you a few examples about me. And then I'm going to talk about clients and just in general and what people listening can start taking on. I'm going to just start with like a really, really simple thing. I'm a celiac, which is an autoimmune. Yeah. I've been celiac since before people knew what gluten meant, for decades now. And I get messages through my website weekly of my life is over. I've been diagnosed with celiac. Like it's the end of the flipping world. Right. And I always giggle at that, because when I was diagnosed with celiac, that was not my reaction. It was, oh, that explains what's going on. Okay, easy, correct it. No gluten. Let's eat unprocessed food. Have never had a symptom since. So to me, it's so interesting. I always think, why does one person think their life is over? And then I was like, oh, okay. Yeah, I figured it out. That's right. One example. Another thing is I'll bring up age. Continually, when someone finds out my age, they'll say, wow, you look good for 51. You look good for 51. And I always think, what's 51 is supposed to look like? Like this to me is what it's supposed to look and feel like. So another example, and then I'll talk about injuries for a minute. I always had said excuses or solutions, you decide, possibility of a problem. And a couple of years ago, I was really challenged with a few injuries, so a few serious injuries.
Mm.
And starting with a massive disc rupture between L5S1, so bad that I had foot drop. My right leg stopped working, and I had to have an emergency surgery just to remove the rupture so I could walk again. No disc replacement or fusion, but it was an ordeal. So I literally have no disc between L5S1. That
Mm.
was the start of injuries. And I remember when that happened, it being in my head initially, oh gosh, I can't work out like I used to. I won't be able to do these things. Like that was my initial thought. And then what I learned from that was being able to really dive into functional training and how can I develop my glutes and my core in a different way so that I take that disc out of the equation. It became an empowering problem versus this kills your workout problem. And then just when I mastered that, tearing a bicep at my distal and having emergency surgery there too to reattach it, and going down this road of, oh, all those things I do, those pull-ups and those chin-ups, I can't do them anymore. And maybe this is just aging. And then instead learning, oh, how can I retrain? How can I relearn? What's new about this now? And I just started to see this pattern of what makes me sort of overcome these things. And they're still very much there, where somebody else might be a career killer or a life killer, or they just give up and stop. And I just started to notice this divide between people where they go one way or the other with circumstances.
Well, and I think to quote Emily Dickinson, she says, dwell in possibilities. And so it's like, oh man, I now have to do, I can't do chin-ups or pull-ups. Actually, maybe I can, but I'm just going to move my hands in a different direction.
Yeah.
Or instead of saying, oh, I've got foot drop, there's no hope for this thing. It's like, let's figure out what it is and get it taken care of. And so, but I think you bring up a good point is when we put a judgment and a finality on something like celiacs or an injury, then our body starts to accelerate its aging process. And have you noticed that we kind of send a universal message?
So there's something called the pain cycle, which I think rapidly ages people. The way I define the pain cycle is something happens, and let's talk about physical pain first. Something happens on your body and it hurts. So you think, I shouldn't move. So now we don't move. And the less we're moving, the more inflammation we have, the more pain we feel. The less we're moving, the more inflammation, the more pain we feel, the less likely we are to eat the way that we should. So now we add junk on top of it. So now we're sedentary, eating foods that are creating more inflammation, and we're justifying with, we're in pain, I can't move, therefore this is what makes me feel better right now. And we stay in this broken cycle that it's hard to get out of. Where, people cringe when I say this, but when you have an injury, you need to be moving. And I'm not talking about your doctor says, your arm's in a cast, don't move that. Where else on your body can you move? If we are inactive, we're going to create that all over our lives. We're going to be sedentary in our own inflammation. So a body in motion stays in motion. Everyone's heard that. We've got to break through that always.
Man. Yeah, I think it's such a critical thing. And so you've written a book called How to Unprocess Your Foods.
Yeah, unprocess your diet.
How to unprocess your diet. How much does diet play into the aging and the mindsets?
So big. It's so huge here. So, and I don't even know your stance on food, but I'm going to share mine. And some people can get heated with me around this, but I'm a fan of eating natural, real, unprocessed foods. And I don't mean 100% of the time. I mean, 99% of the time. I mean, believe me, I've had my share of Reese's peanut butter cups if I really want one, but I would say 99% of the time I'm eating natural, real, unprocessed foods. And a heavy amount of plant-based foods. And I'm not a vegan. I'm not a vegetarian. I eat a lot of protein, a lot of animal protein, but I also eat a lot of fruits and vegetables. I believe that they're healing. I believe they're the key to staying young. It's what we need to repair skin, to repair joints, to repair our body. We need to keep muscle, which comes from protein. Where I think a lot of us are very under muscled as we age. You're already going to lose muscle. So we need to really maintain and grow muscle. And then 2, we need to heal ourselves with fruits and vegetables. When I cringe when I see people on really strict keto or carnivore diets. And then they're wondering why they're rapidly aging. Well, that's why you're rapidly aging. You might be lean now. You might have gotten your insulin under control. You might feel good, but I'm not telling you, giving up all your fruits and vegetables is going to rapidly age you. I've seen it over and over again with people.
Yeah, the antioxidants are pretty critical for anti-aging, and I'm a big believer in all food, like omnivore type approach. But yeah, we recommend to everyone in our programs, like we get them eating about a pound of vegetables a day,
That's amazing.
but also like a pound and a half of meat. So
Yeah.
we're like it's like yeah, you can get your best protein sources are from animal products.
Yes. And that's
Not
how I eat. I would say I eat more like if I had to put it in category, it would be more like a paleo, but with a heavy amount of organic, healthy fruits and vegetables on top of grass-fed meats, because both, it's, I think giving up these whole, I watch these trends either to go completely vegan and give up animal protein or to go keto and give up all fruits and vegetables. And I'm thinking that's doing nothing to help with inflammation or to help with the aging process.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And so, and I look at that too, and I say, well, diet and nutrition, you've helped, I don't know how millions of people lose weight, which is phenomenal because it's kind of a leader. I look at weight as, kind of maybe it's a deficiency in leanness or a deficiency in muscle mass versus an overabundance of fat. But what are some of the main drivers that you use to help people change their thinking around their weight and
Yeah.
their body image?
So I have a process that I teach in fat loss, and it's amazing to me how uncommon this process is. When I look at most dietitians, most nutritionists, most trainers, certified personal trainers for that matter, what they always jump into is the action. What do we need to count? What do we need to measure? What do we need to not eat? What do we need to add? And then, what do we need to do with our bodies? That's been the primary focus. Action's amazing and it's great, but not until you have these first two things in place. Number one, decision.
Mm.
Decision is, what are you actually deciding for yourself? If you're coming into someone's program, meal plan, nutrition, workout plan, whatever, with the decision that your genetics are in the way, your doctor's diagnosis is in the way, your injury is in the way, you've tried everything, nothing's going to work, then you actually haven't decided. You've decided the wrong thing. You've decided that you are different than other people, that it's not going to work for you. And you're operating on action from a place of indecision. It's not a good place. So decision is number one. The second place I love to focus with people, which I think is critical, is vision. Now, vision to me is, where are you headed? What is it that you want? What will that feel like? When I ask clients, what is it that you want? I don't take, I just want to be skinny, or I don't want to be overweight, or I want to lose 15 pounds. That's not a vision. A vision is, a year from now, I will feel this way. I will look this way. And it's a really descriptive, when they've arrived, what is that? When you're very clear on your decision and you're very clear on your vision, where you're headed, what that feels like, what that's like all the way around, and you start taking actions from that future vision, that's when things work. When I hear someone says that they lose motivation, they fall off track, it's because decision and vision are not in place, not because the diet or the workout was too hard or challenging.
Yeah, I like that because when you decide something, it's a commitment, but it's a trade-off too. It comes from, if you think of the word homicide, you got to kill one thing off so that you can become a different version of yourself. So
Yeah.
that's a great formula to help identify with a future version of yourself that's much healthier, much fitter. And what are some of the results that people have experienced in this process that you take them through?
So it's interesting because if people come to me already sort of enrolled in the idea of decision and vision, it's really easy. Like it's a quick process. Like they're in, they get it, they're fired up, they rock and roll on the nutrition and the workout. A lot of other people will come a little bit combative. And what I have to share with them, and I do this through all my programs and books, is we have to walk through that first. And it takes practice, it takes patience, but there's such a breakthrough out of that, because when people realize is when they actually do get clear on their decision and vision and what I call a driving core motivator, which is your deep rooted reason why you want something, it becomes their secret weapon. It becomes the thing that helps them overcome the cravings or the motivation problem or the I'm tired or I don't feel like it. And there's a huge breakthrough. I've helped, my gosh, over 155,000 people release weight. That's at least testimonial wise. And if you ask any of them what worked, they will tell you flat out, I decided and I got clear on my vision. They
Hmm.
won't even bring up the nutrition or the workout until you dig, because they
Yeah.
see how powerful those first two things are.
Man, yeah, we've seen that too. And then we see that, we use peptides as kind of a shortcut because willpower, you have the vision and you have that commitment that you've decided you're going to do it. And then you have a setback. Everybody's going to have setbacks. And
Yeah,
so,
of course.
some of the peptides have been really nice to help people just ease into that process and be able to have confidence in their ability to make the big changes.
Yeah.
Um,
But even with that, like I would imagine, because people want to go to shortcuts, right? So where are they operating on that shortcut from? If they fully get this and they've got a solid foundation, decision, vision, and now they're eating well and they're going to add, let's call it semaglutide, like they're going to add that makes sense. But if they're saying, I'm not going to change anything, I'm just going to add this, when they go off it, they're going to have a big problem.
and
Right.
it's a problem that's much worse. And even if someone's using like a semaglutide individually and they're not using like BPC 157 with it, they're going to lose muscle mass and they could actually do a lot more harm than good in the long run. So this is, we have the same philosophy where it's like, hey, do you want to just fix this thing once and fix it for good? Or do
Mm-hmm.
you want to go through and lose weight every couple of
Yes.
years? You want to go through the same process. And
And
so,
honestly, I see this problem, especially with women and hormone replacement. What I'll see is a woman that is not dialed in all of this. They're not from a place of decision or vision. They're in a place of blame their hormones. They're not
yeah.
eating right. They're not moving their body. They go get their hormone tested. And it's kind of a false read because we're not basing it on natural diet. We're not basing it on doing all the things first. Now they start tweaking their hormones and it's just another crutch. And then you get into this vicious cycle of this changing. I've got to add more, where if you do these other things first, then it's fine tuning and tweaking. It's a whole different story.
Yeah, it's so true. And men is, we're no different. We get on testosterone replacement therapy and we feel unstoppable in the beginning, but then pretty soon that testosterone starts getting aromatized. And after being on it for a year or 2 years, or some men, it's even a few months, then the testosterone starts getting eaten by estrogen and the problem ends up just ballooning and it gets out of control. And so I think you're right. If we start blaming things, like especially if you blame your weight on circumstances, whether it's I don't have time,
Yes.
my spouse isn't supportive, my hormones are jacked up, my gut's jacked up, whatever it is, yes, you need to fix your hormones in your gut. But what you're saying, and I totally agree with, is you've got to first decide. And then once you've decided, you commit to that vision of a
Yes.
healthier version of yourself for good, not just a temporary vision.
Yeah. And my example on this is if you take a body of water and you look at a really dirty body of water, like just imagine a bunch of trash thrown in it, muck, and it's gray and it's dirty. We throw one more piece of trash in there. We don't know what's created the problem at all.
Mhm.
And so now you go and add some kind of supplement or temporary solution, and it kind of clears the space for a little bit, but you never really understand which part it cleared or why it cleared that part. It's just this big area of muck. But you take a really clear body of water, it's crystal clean, and we throw one piece of trash and we know exactly what created the problem. So now we can get really precise with what do we need to tweak here? What do we need to change? What needs to happen? For instance, like you just mentioned BPC 157, and you're more an expert on that than me. But I'll tell you, when I had my injuries and I had all this inflammation going on, I did use BPC 157, but I did it after really cleaning up my diet, like no grains, no dairy, like really looking at where do I have inflammation in my diet. And then it was getting all that out. And then it was fine tuning with that. So versus the other way around. And then I wouldn't know what was, creating what.
Man. So were there other regenerative therapies you used to overcome your injuries?
So with my injuries, I did have surgery for both of them, but the surgery was really the minimal thing. For example, when I ruptured the disc in my back, I didn't put a disc replacement or a fusion in there. I just removed the rupture. With my bicep, same thing. I just reattached it. So
Yeah.
it's not, I didn't add things in, if that makes sense. And
Mhm.
I'm very big on eating an anti-inflammatory healing diet. I think that's priority. I'm very big on movement, lots of hydration, getting the right hydration. And then adding subtle things like BPC 157. I definitely added, I did add a few peptides, but I didn't do it as a permanent thing. It was a temporary thing. I cycled that.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Because I think injuries, we do a lot of bone on knees. We use a lot of regenerative therapies Human tissue allografts are big. So, and even if you look at like the umbilical cord tissue, it's got 261 different peptides in it. So it's just like a peptide factory. So
Got it. I did actually do, I'm just remembering as we're talking, I did stem cells injected in
nice.
my back. I don't know that it made a huge difference, but I did experiment with that.
Yeah. Well, and
Because there's no disc there. There was nothing to stimulate or grow back. And so it's kind of a gamble there.
yeah, and if you've got a disc herniation that's completely herniated, like that's where surgery is really important to have a surgeon, a good surgeon. But more than likely, the stem cells helped in your recovery, so you
It
actually
could have. And PRP, I've done PRP too.
Oh yeah, PRP is great.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's fun. So if you thought, you think of somebody who's out there who, they're struggling, maybe they're a mom, they're like, man, I'm trying to raise my kids. I'm trying to like stay fit, but I look at food and I put on weight.
Yeah.
What advice could you give them?
Well, number one, make your decision. Like, what is it that you want? Not what's happening, not what is, not what's the problem. What do you actually want? Like, this is like a really big question. And it could be a breakthrough for some of you listening. Like, really think about, what do you want? When I ask people what they want, they love to tell me what they don't want or what is. And it's a challenge. So what I'm saying is, what do you actually want? That's number one. And don't skip that vision process of that. And then we've got to stop saying things like, I look at food and put on weight, because we become what we say and what we believe. And you're speaking that over yourself. You're literally saying, like, when you every day say, I look at food and gain weight, guess what's going to happen? You're going to keep looking at food and gaining weight. That's not the story that I believe. I'll cancel that thought if I have it. My thought is, food is healing me. Food serves me. My body craves nutritious foods. Foods is keeping me young and vibrant. Food is keeping me out of pain. Food is healthy. And if I'm having something that's not the ideal healthy food, I'm saying I'm enjoying this right now. So what we speak is what we're going to start believing.
Yeah. My friend Michael Burnoff, he says,
I know him.
oh yeah, isn't he
Yeah.
fun?
Mhm.
Yeah, he's great. He speaks at my Go Wellness events often too. He's such a
Yeah.
good guy. But he says there's two types of food. There's food for entertainment and there's food for energy. And so you just got to tell yourself, like, you can only eat entertaining foods for so long, and then your
Yes.
body's just going to reject it. But if you are eating some entertaining foods like Reese's peanut butter
Yeah.
cups, well, just enjoy them. Like,
Yeah.
it's
Don't beat
fine.
yourself up over it. Like, just move it. Like,
Yeah.
I don't beat myself up for 1 second over it. I laugh about it and I enjoy it. And I know it's what you do 99% of the time.
Yeah. I think that's great. When it comes to fitness, what have you found, for people over 50,
Mhm.
and even for you, what's kind of a great fitness routine?
Okay. So I love this question. First and foremost, most of you listening over 50 have very underdeveloped glutes
Mm,
and an underdeveloped core. And a big reason you're feeling pain is those two things. So,
yeah.
and it's hard for people to accept it, but when I call it grandpa butt, when you get the flat butt, that's from aging. That's a
Mhm.
big reason you have back and joint pain. This
Yeah.
is a really hard thing for people to grasp, but most, especially women, they have the flat grandpa butt over 50.
Yeah.
Now you've got to activate those glutes. It is life-changing what happens when you develop your core and your glutes. And I don't mean just go do sit-ups and squats. That's not what I mean. I mean really concentrating. And I know some of you don't see me on video here, but if you were to do a glute bridge, and you can Google what a glute bridge is,
Yeah.
without any weight, just lay down, keep your core stable, lower back press in the ground, drive through your heels and really squeeze up to your glutes. Just that motion alone is probably challenging for some of you. Working towards that motion could change your life, literally change your life. We are not working through activated glutes. Most of us are quad dominant. We've got tight hip flexors. And then we think we're going to go work out and we're not adding to our hamstrings and our glutes, where our body is taking over on the front side. So hip flexors are tight, your quads are tight, and now it's pulling and we feel like we have lower back pain, we have hip pain, we have knee pain. So much of this is stemming from your glutes. I can't say it enough. You're going to do anything, develop those glutes. Number two, your core. A core is more than just abs and sit-ups. A core is that whole midsection. We've got to be strong there. The number one exercise I feel people are missing and need to do are planks. Now,
Yeah.
before you say my wrist hurt when I do planks, you're not doing them right if your wrist hurt. You are not doing them right if your wrist hurt. I said it. It's true. Why? Because if I just put myself in a position and let my middle hang down, my wrists will hurt too. So will my shoulders and my elbows. When you really engage your core, everything's tight. You're squeezing almost like an upside down V if you have to, exaggerated, tight glutes, tight core. That takes pressure off everywhere. It feels really good. Those two exercises alone are an absolute must for people. If you do nothing but work on those two exercises, you will change your life. Okay. After that, I'm giving you some basics first. How much are you sitting? Stop sitting.
Yeah.
Stop sitting. Walk more, stand more. The only time I sit during the day is when I'm driving or when I'm recording a podcast. That is it. Rest of the time working, I'm standing at a stand-up desk. I'm moving, I'm walking. I make everything standing because sitting is so dangerous for us. And we're keeping our hip flexors in that tight position. That's there. The fourth thing is move daily. Walking is critical. Keep your body moving, like really walking every day, and even thinking while you're walking, am I engaging my core? Am I engaging my glutes? Am I doing this? Those things are like the basics. And I would say most people, Regan, are not doing these things. Or like, it sounds so obvious, but they're not doing those things. So that's first. After that, as far as the perfect workout, there's so many things you could do, but honestly, what's necessary is truly no more than about 20 minutes a day. 20 minutes a day, if you are focused on progression, meaning you're challenging yourself, and intensity, meaning it's challenging for you, is enough to change your body. And if you don't believe me, go try to do a plank or a push-up or a chin-up for 5 minutes and tell me how you feel. When people say 20 minutes isn't enough.
Don't
really?
stop either. Yes.
Yeah. Go. Could you do that for 5 minutes? Most people cannot. Right.
Maybe a plank, yes, but push-ups for 5 minutes, you're going to burn. Yeah.
So anyone that thinks you're not going to change your body in 20 minutes, you're just not, you don't have the right progression or intensity.
Yep. Yeah, I love that. And I think it's really important because we overcomplicate it and we think, oh, I need all this equipment. And
nope, need none of it.
I created a tool that you'd love with Dan Sullivan called the Fitness 50 at Age 100.
Okay.
And do you know Dan Sullivan?
I do. Strategic coach. Yep.
Yeah. So he came up to me and he said, I want you to create this tool. And so I created 11 movements, and they're all designed like, if you're 100 years old, what do you want? What physical activities do you want to be doing and be really good at as a 100-year-old that a healthy 50-year-old could do? And so there's a bunch of science behind it, but grip strength is one of them. Planks is on there. So I have endurance, I have strength, balance, coordination, but
you have to add glute bridges.
I think the glute bridges is actually a really good idea.
It's really, and the reason that came about for me, honestly, is that I would be at physical. Well, there's two reasons this came about. Number one, when I ruptured the disc in my back and I could not get myself out of pain, it was driving me crazy. My daughter, who's 15 at the time, she was 12. And she said to me, we were walking, she said, Mom, your butt looks flat. And I remember thinking my butt looks flat, but it got me hyper focused on fixing that aesthetically. And what I noticed doing it was I got out of pain. So I connected the dots. Oh, L5S1's the problem. If you develop those glutes, you're not going to feel L5S1. So that was the first thing. But then I started noticing when I was going through physical therapy for my injuries, I would watch other people in physical therapy there for hips or back or whatever, and they didn't have a butt. I was like, they don't have glutes.
So true.
And then I would notice a physical therapist taking him through exercises and they weren't doing them right. Like they weren't literally. So I thought, wow. And then I had my own mom who's 76. I had her try to do a glute bridge and she couldn't do it. So I thought, wow, how interesting, how much glute we lose as we age.
Yes. Because we have like squats, certain amount of squats that you can do in 50 seconds. And then we have like a wall sit. But the glute bridge is brilliant. My wife is a Pilates instructor, so we have 2 reformers in my house, and then she teaches classes as well. But the biggest thing that Pilates has done for me in the last couple of years is actually helped me engage my glutes, just like you're saying. Is we do butt busters is what they're called. Okay. And when I first started doing those, like the fire hydrant, all these different moves, I'm just like, I don't have any muscle there. It was crazy. Right. How I compensated.
And you know how to do the exercise. But so let's say if some people go and do a squat or a fire hydrant or a donkey kick and they don't correctly know how to activate your glute, they will get into their lower back because they're swinging, they're doing. So a glute bridge forces you to use your glutes. That's why I like it so much. because
Yeah.
a squat can easily be done wrong. Especially a lot of people will say they can't do squats with their lower back. The reason they can't do it is they're loading on their shoulders and compressing and now trying to do a squat. That's the wrong way to start healing there. You got to start without
Right.
the weights. You got to start with either a Bulgarian, yeah, I'm sorry, a goblet squat, like holding it, not putting pressure on your shoulders.
Totally. Man, I think this is brilliant. And for those that we have our fitness trainer, his name's Tristan here, and I see him working with people in their 70s and 80s, just trying to help them get those movements just right. And for those of you who hear this, if you can just start this today, like you don't even like, just try the glute bridge. I mean,
Yep.
it's a great move. Try the plank. Those small things are what make your life so much easier. It's like the hardest thing to do is become sedentary, because then you got to pay for that every single day. Every
It's
time you
true.
move your body, you try to fall asleep. You're not going to be comfortable in bed. And so that's the harder thing. The easiest thing is to just do some glute bridges right now.
It's true.
So I love
But
that.
Google how, if you don't know how to do it, like really know how to do it, Google it, because I want to make sure you have the right form, because you can also get into your back swinging if you're doing it incorrectly. So just Google the correct way to do that stuff before you try.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and this has been amazing, but and I know you've got a bunch of books. I mean, you're so talented. And so what do you see the next 10 years? Like as you look and you say, okay, you're 51,
Yeah.
what do you want? What's your vision? What have you decided? And your vision for the 61-year-old version of Natalie Jill?
So, it's interesting. I don't love the way that the society is going with a lot of this. I have my own personal vision here. I think unfortunately we're getting too far away from self-responsibility, and we're focusing too much on blame, and we're
Mm,
focusing too much on quick fixes. And I think that's a problem. And I'll just give you an example. And I'm just no judgment on women listening that have Botox. I don't have Botox, and believe me, I'm not against cosmetic surgery or anything like that. I've had my fair share of things, but I'm not a Botox person. I don't do that. I don't want to inject it in my face. And I look at that as an example of where our society is going. Like, okay, let's just inject something that's poison, that's junk, that we don't know what it's doing to our bodies in our forehead to look younger. We're not
mm,
fixing anything. We're just trying to mask the problem. And I kind of relate this to a palm tree. If you picture a palm tree and the leaves, they grow, they're green, they turn brown, they fall over
yeah.
as they die. If we were to spray paint the brown leaves bright green and put wires in it, they'd look kind of funny. They wouldn't actually be fixed, right? They would look funny. I
I
feel like that's what
see
we're
where you're
doing
going.
as a society as we're aging. We're masking things with all this stuff versus actually getting to the root, getting cellular, and figuring out how do we fix the structure from the inside out. So to me, the true keys are muscle building and maintaining. We are under muscled. We've got to fix that, add muscle,
Yeah.
maintain muscle. We have to help our skin and our bones and our tissue through things like collagen, through peptides. There's ways to do that, to regenerate from the inside out. We've got to nourish with a lot of fruits and vegetables and healing foods to help us. We've got to stay hydrated. There's some basic things we do there. And then we must stay moving.
Yeah. I think you nailed it. And I think that's where, healing from the inside out, beauty from within, is key. So you as a 61-year-old, it's like, oh, cool. You're just going to keep doing what you're doing, and maybe bypass some of the treatments people are opting for.
That's what I hope. I mean, and look, there's no shame in me doing things, but I want to correct things from the inside out. I'm looking to conquer inflammation. I'm looking to be stronger. I'm looking to avoid problems. But I'll tell you, I've upped my protein a lot. I've upped my training. I'm doing everything to prepare to be my best self at 61 and to help others learn this. I'm not a fan of just slapping things on to make it appear different.
Yeah, love it. Well, I think that's beautiful. And I think that's, our motto here is we want, your next decade to be your best decade, no matter what age you are. And so I'd love to see you go through the Fitness 50, because I grade people. It's like fit, fitter, and fittest. So
Oh,
there's like
wow.
3 different tiers.
I bet you'd be in the fittest, but if you
I don't
get
know. I mean, and maybe I would, or maybe I wouldn't, but like just like the circumstances, those injuries definitely set me back. I cannot do right now what I could do before those injuries, but I'm working on it and I believe I can. I believe I will. And
well, I'll shoot it over to you, and then maybe we'll have another. We're
okay.
gonna have multiple conversations, but
Yeah.
yeah, we'll get you back on, and you can share that. But yeah, this has been amazing. If you had one word to describe yourself, what word would that be?
Possibility.
I love that. Yeah, it's how we started the show. Is like, hey, like no more blame the circumstances. Like there's always a possibility in it, and you're a living witness of that. So
Always a possibility. And I hope to stay accountable to that, by the way. Like I've had my days, as we all do, where I'm going down a rabbit hole of doomsday of what's wrong. And I hope that people in my life hold me accountable to possibility, because when someone says you're right, that sucks, that might feel good in a moment, but it's not going to help me get better.
yeah, I love that, man. Well, this has been phenomenal, and I just want to thank you for being on today, and thank you for being such a cool human, and 51-year-old, fitness star, and just amazing. How can people find out more about you?
Yeah, great. Well, I'm on social media everywhere at Natalie Jill Fit. I have a podcast called Midlife Conversations, and my website is nataliejill.com.
That's awesome. So check out Natalie's website, her social medias. It's all amazing. And Natalie, thanks so much for being on the show. Really
Thanks for
appreciate
having
it.
me.
You got it. Take care, everybody. We'll talk to you soon.